I am Joel McLeod, and welcome to the 905er. It's been 4 months since the provincial election in February, an election that saw Doug Ford return to power with an historic third majority. The opposition parties were left with picking up the pieces of the result. The NDP are still in official opposition position, with Marit Stiles securing her position as leader. For the Ontario Liberals, however, returning to the third place status in the legislature is not sitting well with some of the grassroots. When she was elected as leader, Bonnie Crombie promised a return to power, claiming that she could take down Doug Ford and bring the Ontario Liberals back to government. While the Ontario Liberals gained a bigger share of the popular vote and gained official party status in the legislature, Bonnie Crombie failed to secure her seat or any seat in the 905 for that matter. For many in the party, this wasn't a sign of a comeback, but more of a sign of a failure of leadership. A group of Ontario Liberals calling themselves the New Leaf Liberals are organizing to defeat Bonnie Crombie in her upcoming leadership review this September at the party's AGM. Ousting Bonnie Crombie as leader will, of course, trigger a new leadership race, one that many Liberals are saying the party does not need. Well, to learn about this Liberal rebellion, I invited on one of the organizers of the New Leaf Liberals, Nathaniel Arfin. We had on Nathaniel before to discuss education on the podcast, and Nathaniel is a Burlington Liberal from here in the 905. He joins me today. Okay, thank you, Nathaniel Arfin. Returning back to the 905er, had you on for not this reason, but I believe we're talking education in another lifetime years ago. Maybe we'll find that episode and put it in the show notes. Anyways, I am rambling, and that's a bad start to an episode. But we're having Nathaniel on to talk New Leaf Liberals, and I'm going to throw it open to you to explain what is this, because listeners of this podcast probably know what it is, but I'm hoping we're casting our net wide, and there are people who are saying, what is this? Explain in a nutshell for us, please.
Um, Essentially, the New Leaf Liberals is a grassroots organization, a collection of uh, former candidates, former staffers, current staffers, and just members of the party who looked and reflected at the election results over the past year for the Ontario Liberals and reflected on the 2022 and 2018 elections. And we saw so many similarities between all three of those elections and a lack of growth or ability to change. As a result, we decided the only way forward for this party is either Bonnie has clear support, overwhelming support from the party, or we go to a leadership race.
And so you're basically trying to push for a leadership review with, I'm going to presume the intention is to oust Bonnie Crombie as leader of the Ontario Liberal Party and trigger a new leadership race. Is that pretty much in a nutshell what you guys are trying to do?
Yes, you could
Okay.
definitely characterize it that way.
Okay.
We don't believe that Crombie has been an effective leader for the party. We feel like if we fail to remove her now, we will not be able to take the necessary steps to grow to defeat Doug Ford.
Now this I've been an Ontario Liberal in another lifetime. Liberals like to win. I've never known where Liberals are comfortable with. Yeah, second place, definitely third place in the legislature is something that Liberals are comfortable with. However, this is not a new song that has been played. Whenever the federally or provincially the leader does not live up to victory, like the bar is really high for that. We hear there's rumblings from the grassroots. You were supposed to deliver us to power. We were supposed to be either be the prime minister, or we're supposed to be the premier, or whatever the case may be. Your detractors are saying this is just sour grapes. You guys are just suck it up, deal with it. She's the leader. Uh, you know, she did get back to party status in the legislature. So, that is a win. Increase the share of the popular vote. Like, are these not milestones that should be celebrated and to be built upon to win the next election for the Ontario Liberals?
I think that those milestones would be something I'd be willing to celebrate if they came with the accountability and the reflection that also comes with a leader losing their seat, maintaining third party status or third place status. We aren't boxed out of the legislature the same way we were, but Bonnie still doesn't have a seat. We still don't have a true leader in the House of Commons, and the party is still falling victim to the same issues that plagued them in the Del Duca years and in the end of the Kathleen Wynne years.
Mhm.
Unless those problems are solved, we're not going to move on as a party and we're not going to grow. We might be able to fight for second place, but is that who the Ontario Liberals are? Are we a party that fights for second place, or are we a party that challenges the Conservatives for government on a regular basis and is able to be the progressive leader in this province?
You said that the party has not learned the lessons from their previous losses. I'm wondering, can you just go specifically? What are you talking about? What are you looking at when you say the party needs to learn? What lessons have they not learned, or what are you seeing as the gaps here?
Some of the things that were highlighted in the 2022 and 2018 election postmortems from the Ontario Liberal Party were the lack of available volunteers, the lack of a strong candidate base, the lack of a good and reliable nomination process for local ridings, the lack of funding in PLAs. I can go on and on and on because each of these things continues to be highlighted in postmortems today. If you sit in the regional meetings or listen to the recaps of these meetings that Crombie's team and the rest of the party are having, we're hearing the same issues. Candidates did not feel supported. They didn't feel like we had the data that we needed. We weren't able to pivot to new messaging quickly enough. There were so many problems with the campaign we ran, but it wasn't symbolic of this campaign. It wasn't a single campaign issue. This is a problem at the core of the party.
And so, like, I guess the gap. I guess the question then is like, how big of a gap do you see the current Ontario Liberal Party being its current form to what you think it needs to be? Like, realistically, do you have 3 years really to rebuild that party into the fighting? Because I'm also thinking it's been in your mind, it's been atrophying for since 2018. In 3 years, can that be rebuilt to take on Doug Ford, who, right now the polls are showing he'd coast easily into a fourth majority mandate in Ontario?
There's certainly an argument to be had about whether or not they had enough time to prepare the party. But if you look around at what the party was actually doing in the run up, um, after Crombie got elected leader, for that entire year, nothing happened. There was no meaningful progress. There wasn't any organizing. There were no candidate elections. It was a stagnant 2023 for the party, or 2024 for the party, and we didn't really kick it into gear until right before the election was called. And this was an election that had been forecast for months. Um, Anyone who was paying attention to any level of politics in the summer and fall of 2024 knew that early
Mhm.
2025 election was coming, if it wasn't coming at the end of 2024. So that's another big issue that we're seeing is the party is saying, oh, how could we have known? Doug called a snap election. I'm sorry, those kinds of excuses, they just don't resonate and they show a lack of accountability.
Well, I will agree with you on that because we did two episodes on that on the rumors of a snap election being
Yeah,
called
you guys were one of the first.
for February. We're had the episode talking about it was most likely like a February March election time window to be called. So yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. I don't buy the we never saw it coming, like everybody said. The elephant in the room, let's just get into this one, is that you guys are a mask for Nate Erskine Smith to come into the provincial theater and come in and stage a comeback because out of his loss back in lost to Bonnie Crombie. It, what do you say to that? Is there truth to that? Is that the game plan here? How do you respond to those allegations?
There's no master plan here, at least as far as I'm concerned. When I started organizing this, Nate was still the housing minister,
Hmm.
and I expected him to continue to be the housing minister. My plans didn't change as a result of Nate's situation. If he decides to run, that's fantastic. I'll see about supporting him. But what we as an organization want is growth in the Ontario Liberal parties beyond whoever the next leader might be. I like Nate and I've worked with him. A lot of the signatures you're going to see out of the outset are going to be Nate names because I'm one of the central organizers and I'm going to ask my friends to sign it and the
Hmm.
people that I've worked with to sign it. And a lot of them are Nate people. But as we continue to grow, we're getting more signatures from outside of our bubble because people are invested in a stronger Ontario Liberal Party. I will say one of our main organizers, Evan Sambasavim, is or was one of he worked on Ted's campaign. He was not a
Okay.
Nate supporter. We have a diverse team. We have supporters from Bonnie's camp, people who worked on her campaign team. We have people who worked on Adol's campaign. We have people who worked on Yasser's campaign. This isn't about who the next leader is. It's about making sure the party acknowledges that there is more work to be done beyond the leader. Bonnie Crombie has failed to make that kind of work a priority, to make the rebuilding and the regrowth a priority, and there can be no accepting that.
Okay, I have a couple questions based on that response, and the first one I'm going to say is the other problem that I foresee with with your movement is, are you going to make the Ontario Liberal Party appetizing for that the new leader, whoever he or she may be, uh, because you are basically triggering a kind of a civil war within the Ontario Liberal Party. Because I mean, tensions are running high. I'm seeing posts on social media from both sides. You know, people wanting to remove Bonnie, people saying, "No, we can't. We have to hunker down and rebuild, and we can't. You know, a costly leadership campaign is the last thing we need in the party." And I'm wondering, like, how far are you willing to go with this? That you do you make it unappetizing for somebody who might have the credentials, might have the skills and the networking to kind of rebuild and maybe rebuild the Ontario Liberal Party into a 21st century political machine. Um, you know, how far are you willing to go with this?
We don't want to, by any means, act as a force to diverge the party or create a wedge in the party. At the end of the day, we want to come out of the AGM this year as the stronger version of the Ontario Liberal Party. Win or lose, if Bonnie is reaches that 66% threshold and she shows that she can command the support of the party, uh, I can't speak for everyone on board, but I will be behind her. I will go knock doors with her in Mississauga, Cooksville, or wherever she ends up running. This is about making sure that the party comes through stronger because we have to be stronger. We have to be a more professional and more capable organization if we're going to defeat Doug Ford.
Okay. On that note, then, is there a path forward that Bonnie Crombie could win your support back. I mean, the Liberal AGM is in September. There's an entire summer to for her to reach out to your organization, to your members, and win them back over. Let's play devil's advocate here, or how does Bonnie win you over and secure her leadership?
Again, I can only speak for myself here. We would need to see, or I would need to see a fundamental change in how the organization approaches consultancy, approaches spending, approaches data. Basically, the party needs to fundamentally change the way they act, and the way that the political organization runs. Social media is currently, they do what they can, but there needs to be feeling to it.
Hmm.
Right now, it's a hollow brand. You look at the website and there's stuff up there from 2023 and 2022. I know that web isn't a priority and I know that social media isn't how you build organizations, but this is how people first perceive you. And if you're missing on those easy wins, it's going to be harder to build brand trust. We need to be knocking doors. We need to be organizing in a traditional way. And between elections, that's not happening. We're, we're we exist. Our riding associations exist for the election campaign,
Hmm.
and they don't build support. They don't build organization. They don't build community around the party, and it leads to us falling behind.
The This might be an unfair question to pose to you, but I'm going to kind of step back and look at a more general look of Ontario politics. For the last couple of years, I've been wondering, what does the Ontario Liberal Party stand for? I don't know. The last election, I didn't really get the narrative. I didn't get the messaging, or where are where are we supposed to see the Ontario Liberal Party in the spectrum of Ontario politics? Is that something that you guys are seeing or feeling as well? I mean, like, when I guess my question is this: why are you an Ontario Liberal? Forget the leadership stuff. Forget that. Like, what attracted you to the party? Because I know why it attracted me in the past. I'm not sure it's still there for me to welcome in. I'm not sure I'd be welcome back into the party. I'll be honest. But I'm curious to know, like, why is it that you want to call yourself an Ontario Liberal?
To me, the Ontario Liberals have always represented, um, I guess I can call it compassionate capitalism. It's the liberalism, that small L liberalism, where we're allowing markets to work, we're allowing um, capitalism and commerce, and we're encouraging those things, but we're also supporting the people who need assistance. And we are taking the profits of the success of the market and we're reinvesting it in supportive services, in social services, in education, and in healthcare, and providing people with not just the basics they need to survive, but an equitable start to provide. I don't want to say value back to society, but to be a contributing member of society, to be someone who has something to belong to and has
Mhm.
meaning for existing. That's what I think the Ontario Liberal Party is about. It's compassionate capitalism and building support systems with the profits.
I was going to ask a question about whether or not you thought a merger with the NDP is possible in the future, but I think your answer just pretty much nipped that that one in the butt. Because, yeah, I get the sense that's a majority of Ontario Liberals' view. My conversation with the NDP members is they're thinking, oh, you're just Doug Ford, a red Doug Ford. So I can see, like, yeah, where that gap is pretty sizable to merge. Um, I mean, the question is, why? I am amazed at the silence I've heard from the Ontario Liberal Party post election. Um, the most damning moment I've felt is the controversy surrounding Bill 5. This is something that I thought we really see where the Ontario Liberals have really not stepped up to the plate, in my opinion, to really hold the government to account. Whereas the NDP have done some of the communications heavy lifting on this. Uh, what's your take on the current status of Ontario politics? I mean, we it seems like the Ontario. I don't see a lot of opposition at Queens Park. I guess is what I'm getting at, and I'm just, how does this benefit or hurt Ontario on the whole?
Well, I do want to say shout out to Ted Chu. He did table 4,000
Hmm.
amendments to Bill 5 in opposition, so he did a really good
Well,
job.
but not just him, but like Tyler Watt and John Sow, uh, both in committee work did the committee work. Like they did that strategy in committee to really kind
Mhm.
of point out the flaws in Bill 5. It's just you and I are policy wonks, so yeah, we're watching like all the minutiae. Joe and Jane Main Street, like who's John Sow and Tyler Watt and Ted Hsu?
Absolutely. This is one of the issues is the party seems incapable of supporting their stars. They
Mhm.
don't have the air game that Doug Ford has. Like you said, they have been silent in since the election. Why isn't Bonnie Crombie on TV? Why isn't she on radio every single day? Why isn't an MPP writing an op-ed every single day? In newspapers need print. Shows need content. They want people on. I mean, I'm here and I founded this website. You know, podcasts need guests.
Mhm.
People, why are the Ontario Liberals not speaking to people? Why are they not reaching out to people saying, we want you back? We want your support back. We're fighting for you in Queen's Park. We're trying to stop Bill 5. Here's what we're doing. Here are the 6 amendments or 4,000 amendments. Why wasn't there a website listing the 4,000 amendments? There's so much low-hanging fruit here that isn't being collected. And it's incredibly frustrating to watch because it just requires a little bit of strategic thought and a little bit of effort. And these things make a difference.
They do, and these are things I mean, for the record, if Bonnie Crombie herself wants to come on and refute your this episode, I'd be more than happy to have her in front of the microphone. I have had her on before. The offer is out there. If anybody in the Ontario Liberal Party upper brass wants to come on, I am. No, I'm going to clarify that. I don't want anyone in the upper brass. I want Bonnie Crombie on. Um, because she's the leader. I don't. Yeah, I mean that's the thing is politics. It's all about communications. You have to be able to uh, communicate your message using the tools of the day. And right now, I mean, you have podcasts, social media. Like there's a million different uh, 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 avenues to approach here. But I'm going to bring it back again. What is the Ontario Liberal message?
And that's a big problem that we're seeing. One of the big contentious issues in the previous session was the removal of safer supply and harm reduction measures. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm sure you guys talked about it, and it's an issue that I care about very deeply. And the Ontario Liberal Party voted in favor of it, barring 4 or 5 members. They voted in favor of the elimination of harm reduction sites and safer supply. I don't know who that party is. We also had 2 MPPs vote in favor of the Bill 6 from this session to clear homeless encampments. Who, what Ontario Liberal Party is saying that we need to reduce the measures to save lives and we need to criminalize the homeless. That is a big, big problem for me. And that's one that I personally have. I don't want this organization or New Leaf Liberals to project a specific policy direction or political direction. What New Leaf Liberals really is all about is growth and strength and professionalism. It's the necessary components for us to build a winning party, which has so desperately been needed in the past. I can't believe it's what is it, 2018? Yeah, 7 years? No, 8 years? Nine
Well,
years?
it'd be not eight, not nine, probably about 7 years.
Yeah.
No, it's 8 years, 2025. The one criticism that we had about Bonnie Crombie was the fact that she never ran for a seat. I mean, she did run in the general election and she infamously lost it. But our thoughts were always like when the Milton by-election happened, where she ran federally and where she lived, Mississauga, Streetsville, like it is literally their neighbors, their borders touch. And I thought this is a perfect opportunity for her to win a seat in 905, prove she's winnable, get an inroad into the 905 for the Ontario Liberal Party, and use that to build into the general election. The fact that she didn't run at all, I thought was a. There are people saying, "Oh no, she need to go out and tour the province." I think, in hindsight, it proves that it was a catastrophic strategic error on her part and the party's part. And I'll stand by that one. Right now, there's no by-election scheduled in Ontario between now and September. Say September, she goes back, she does win the leadership review in the fall. How important do you think it'd be for her to immediately, wherever a by-election pops up in the next 4 years, no matter where it is in the province, she has to run in it to win that seat to get into the legislature?
Yes. I don't care if it's North Bay. It needs to happen. Bonnie Crombie is currently costing the party $185,000 a year, a salary of her own selection. And that is the case because she doesn't have a seat.
Mm-hmm.
These are funds we don't have. The fundraising is non-existent at the moment. So yeah, she needs to get a seat as quickly as possible. Absolutely.
And that being said, where's the easiest place for her to run and get that seat? I mean, ideally, let's say ideally this we can kick anybody out of the legislature, they retire, and Bonnie runs in the surefire liberal victory neighborhood. Where would that be in the province?
I mean, Burlington was won by 4 votes by the Conservatives. That might be the closest we're going to get.
Yeah, but that a lot of the work was done by Andrea Gerbance, who I know for a fact, did a lot of networking and building her own brand within the in Burlington. Burlington is
Years and
not
years.
well, Burlington's a pretty safe Tory seat. I mean, the only other Tory MPP, sorry, Liberal MPP was Eleanor McMahon back in the Wynne era. So, you know, again, like but it begs the question, can the Liberals win in the 905? Because without the 905, you don't win the province. And I don't know where the Liberals could coast to victory in this region.
I really don't see any post ridings. And this is kind of one of the things. Being a politician and running a political party, they are a lot of work. It is a big job.
Mhm.
And doing so in a tenuous situation where you don't actually have a seat, you don't have the ability to be with your caucus on a daily basis, speaking across the aisle, it gets harder and harder. I Right now, Bonnie Crombie, we have the summer, but I don't see where she can coast to victory. I don't see any of the current MPPs stepping aside. And there is no easy riding for her.
Mhm.
She lost Cooksville, right? She lost in the city where she was mayor. This was a riding that Damerla held not that long ago. I don't know where she can run and how she can operate this party without a seat.
What in 4 years' time, we're scheduled to have a general election in the province. That's 4 years is a eternity in politics, so who knows what's going to happen between on it then. But let's go with the assumed timeline. In 4 years' time, if the liberals don't win, and I'm going to say like win the game, win back government, what are your concerns is going to happen to the party? Like, can they survive? Like, are we looking at another 40 years of a Tory dynasty in Ontario if the Liberals cannot unseat the Doug Ford machine?
That's something that we want to prevent. As an organization, New Leaf Liberals wants to prevent that specific scenario. We believe that rebuilding isn't a single election campaign or a single year or a single cycle. It is a constant process. It is always knocking doors, always finding ways to get into community events, always making phone calls, inviting people into the organization so that if someone's even thinking about it, you're at their door. We need to be working all the time. And that doesn't just mean a visit to the PLA. That means organization, top to bottom,
Mhm.
structural change so that there are things happening at all times and the party knows what's happening and can step in to accelerate things if they notice changes, if they notice a riding is heating up, or if they notice that um, some candidate in a municipal election did a great job and they think about supporting them. We can find new paths to growth and new paths to success by being around, just by existing
Mhm.
for the 3 years in between campaign cycles.
Well, the one benefit, and you got to give Doug Ford credit on this, is that he has built an Ontario PC tent like Ford Fest. Um, I was posting on social media that the last Ford Fest that he had just a few weeks ago, turnout was massive. It was clear his brand is still very strong in his wheelhouse, and he's built. How he worked to get big business as well as massive union support all in the same tent astounds me. And well, it does. I mean that is a genuine political win on Doug Ford. No matter what way you look at it, you have to give the man credit. He has built that tent, and it's strong. It's not flimsy. My question is like, where's there used to be a big red machine. There used to be a big tent, and I don't know what trade union, what grassroots organization, what business, what industry association would pull their support from that machine and give it to Bonnie Crombie or the Ontario Liberal Party, which in turn attracts high caliber candidates from a variety of backgrounds to run. That to me is the biggest weakness right now for the Ontario Liberal Party. How can that be fixed in 4 years? Or are we looking at, I guess that's the puzzle I'm trying to figure out.
I don't know that this is a single cycle rebuild, if I'm being honest. And, this is something that was pointed out by a number of candidates on the leadership cycle that this wasn't going to be a one and done. But the way the party has acted since the leadership, they have acted as though it was a one and done, as though the rebuild was complete, as though stepping in, Bonnie becoming the leader, we have the energy, we can feel the spark, And that was it. And that after that, there was no real
Mm.
outreach. There was no attempt to build bridges between the camps, the various disparate groups who supported different leaders. And when you win by 4%, it's kind of hard to justify not extending an olive branch and not trying to organize in a way that brings people in.
Well, it was kind of telling when, at the time, if you flash back, that Nate Erskine-Smith and Yasser Naqvi were not lured from federal politics. Because at that time, it was when Justin Trudeau was still leader, and everybody thought, well, that's going to be a shellacking federally. I thought that's the time to lure them down provincially and say, we'll find a spot for you to run provincially. The fact that, that didn't happen, I thought was a bit of a failure. That being said, what are the plans then for the New Leaf Liberals over the summer? What are we expecting to see from you guys over the summer?
So we are going to be having a couple events coming up. One in the east end of Toronto, one in Ottawa so far. We'll be getting the details about those up on the website, newleafliberals.com. And we will be continuing to organize. The signatures that are on the site, we're currently just under 200. But that's not all we're doing. We want to find liberals who have similar ideas to us, and we want to hear from them because, like I said, this is about growing the party. This is about building something that can beat Doug Ford. That has to be our objective. That has to be our focus. Um, Building something stronger that represents the Liberal Party and what we can be.
All right. Well, I will leave it at that for this episode. Thank you very much, Nathaniel Arfin from the New Leaf Liberals, for talking about change in the Ontario Liberal Party. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.